Margaret, as I said, is kindly coming up to read, and she's reading the reading that we did this morning, Luke 23, from verse 33 to 49.
Luke 23, verse 33. And when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him, and the malefactors, one on the right hand and the other on the left. Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and cast lots. And the people stood beholding. And the rulers also with them derided him, saying, He saved others, let him save himself, if he be Christ, the chosen of God. And the soldiers also mocking him, coming to him and offering him vinegar, and saying, If thou be the King of the Jews, save thyself. And the superscription also was written over him in letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew. This is the King of the Jews. And one of the malefactors, which were hanged, railed on him, saying, If thou be Christ, save thyself and us. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, Dost not thou fear God, seeing that thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man hath done nothing amiss. And he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. And it was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. And when Jesus had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And having said this, he gave up the ghost. Now when the centurion saw what was done, he glorified God, saying, Certainly this was a righteous man. And all the people that came together to that sight, beholding the things which were done, smote their breast and returned. And all his acquaintance, and the women that followed him from Galilee, stood afar off, beholding these things.
The prayers on the cross. We looked at the first two this morning, we look at the third tonight. 3 prayers, 7 statements were made on the cross, or conversations that were had whilst Christ was on the cross. And of those 7 different separate phrases or conversations or statements that were made, 3 of them were prayers. He had, that evening or that day and the evening before, he had spent much time in prayer. We looked at that last week, that culminated in Gethsemane with the prayers that went on there. But there were other prayers that had gone on that the Gospels tell us about as well. But these prayers, these 3 prayers, really give a grand picture of the cross itself. And the first prayer that we looked at this morning was, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. And really, it allows us to see the great purpose of the cross, forgiveness. I don't say that's all of the purpose of the cross, but on its, hanging on to its shirt tails there, are so many things of blessings that with forgiveness, God brings to us through the cross of Jesus. With forgiveness, we can know peace. To be at peace with God, to be at peace with yourself, to be at peace with those around you. You can know access into God's presence, but you can't know it till you find forgiveness. We know that God has got the finest hearing that anybody has ever had. But for you to have that near access, taste forgiveness. It follows on the shirt tails of forgiveness itself. And there are so many other things that we could talk of. Is abiding presence follows with forgiveness. All the different things. So, yes, the purpose of the cross is forgiveness, but we don't limit it to that. As soon as we put limitations on what the purpose of the cross is, we fail to take on board exactly what it is for. As soon as you try to limit God in that way. And so the first prayer then, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. Amazing prayer, really. Amazing prayer. Is he favouring those that they given? Is he giving special privileges to those that have nailed him to the cross? To those that have crucified him? To the centurion that would have been in charge of those Roman soldiers? They and them in the verses that pertain to this particular point. Are they privileged in some way that they can know forgiveness without really seeking forgiveness? Well, no. Christ forgave them on earth. But they have to comply with the demands of the gospel, the call of the Father to repent and to believe. The amazing thing is, joining the thief in forgiveness at the cross was the Roman centurion and those that were with him. Luke says, and they glorified God. Matthew says that they, what did I say this morning that they did? I've forgotten what he did now. But they confessed that this was the Son of God. And so we find that this forgiveness that Christ offered there was forgiveness towards them. But they still needed forgiveness from God. This fountain at Calvary opened so wonderfully a new world to the Roman centurion and to his soldiers. It was to open a fountain even to the priests later on. For we read in the book of Acts that many of the priests became converted. It's marvelous how God can change us, what he can do for us. We think this and suddenly we find that Christ is so real, so living. The second prayer, it talks about the pain of the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Not physical pain, though the gospel writers make it clear that it must have been physically painful. But we're not permitted to look at this pain that Christ suffered. Spiritual pain. A darkness came over all the land. Mark says a darkness over all the earth that lasted for 3 hours. Couldn't have been an eclipse. Couldn't have been. No eclipse lasts for 3 hours. No eclipse lasts for an hour. Never mind 3 hours. It was a darkness that veiled humanity from the view of Christ suffering, the anguish and the fury of God's wrath with sin, as he laid the iniquity of us all upon his Son. He abandoned him. My God, why have you forsaken? We cannot see his pain, but we hear it. When that fellowship that had been unbroken since before time, since before beginning, they have never known disunity. Well, not disunity. They've never known division. Father and Son. Wonderful thing. And so we find with this third prayer, we come to this third prayer now. The purpose of the cross, forgiveness. The pain of the cross, I invented this word just to fit it in. Forsakenness. I don't know if it is such a word as that. Please don't go to your Collins Dictionary. I'm sure Phil Barkley did this morning when we did it. This is what it says in Luke's Gospel, verse 46. Now it was about, I'll go from verse 44. Now it was about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was torn in two. And when Jesus had cried out with a loud voice, he said, Father, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And having said this, he breathed his last. Both Matthew and Mark and Luke tell us that Christ, before he prayed, uttered with a loud cry. They don't give us the intelligence, they don't give us the news of what that cry was. It's not until we go into the Gospel of John that we find out what this loud cry was. In John chapter 19, verse 30, it says this, Jesus said, it is finished. And bowing his head, he gave up his spirit. So he's able to put words into this loud cry. I mentioned this morning, didn't I, about Richard Wurmbrand. I think it was on the occasion that he came to the Heath Church, Evangelical Church, many, many years ago down in Cardiff. And I remember being told the story that he was He was asked to explain, to tell about the sufferings, the pain of the suffering church. And he could well have talked about the days of arrest, the days of persecution, the days of interrogation, the days of imprisonment, the days of isolation, the days of losing jobs, the days of children being, set upon simply because their mum and dad were Christians. And losing out financially, losing out career-wise, losing jobs, losing houses, losing respect, and all those things. He could have told about those things, and doubtless he did. But he said to express the pain of the suffering church, and he let out this almighty cry from deep within his being. Now, I'm not going to do it because I know it'll sound either like a yawn or something like an elephant trunk or something blasting off or something like that. I'm not going to do it. But it's that type of cry. Is Christ saying something that is unintelligible, that we cannot hear it, that we cannot understand it? Bible speaks, don't it, in the book of Romans, about groanings within which cannot be uttered. It tells concerning the children of Israel, when they were in dark, dark Egypt, that the Lord heard their groaning. Not their moaning. I expect they were moaning as well. But he heard their groaning, which was louder than their moaning. And so we find with this, that he let out this loud, loud cry. Then John puts words into that cry. It is finished. It means, I could quote the Greek word, but I don't want to. I keep it in English. It's far, far better, I think. In Greek, it would be one phrase, one word that they would use, but we in English would say it is finished. It's translated in the New Testament in a number of ways. It's accomplished. It's completed. Interesting one, this one. It is paid. Another one. It has brought an end to, or make an end of. Unusual translation of words. We understand the first one, accomplished, but that one paid. It's an unusual one. The phrase itself was in common use. So often with Jesus, he used words that people understood. He spoke in a language that they didn't think, well, what's this guy on about here? We don't have a clue what he's talking about. I think it's a credit to any preacher that is able to bring some words that people are able to understand. It's one of the most important things that a preacher has to concentrate upon. I hope none of you are just murmuring in the beat saying, well, what on earth is he on about that? Just by luck if it is. But we find with this that Christ used this phrase that was common in the home, in the workplace, in the temple, in the artist's studio, and in the marketplace. This phrase, it is finished, was in common use. The slave, when given a task by his master or her master, upon completing the task, would report back to the master or to the mistress, it is finished. It's accomplished. And no doubt there would be another job ready and waiting for them to go and sort that out. Or maybe a diary for the next day, or what the next day is going to be. I don't know if there was a clocking off type of thing for a servant or slave in a Roman home, in a Roman home. I don't know. And so it would be quite common in the home place and in the working place, bearing in mind the millions that were as slaves within the Roman Empire. It would be common to hear that. It's finished, Master. In the temple, strange now, we move from the common place to a temple place. And the priest would use this term upon proving that the given sacrifice, a lamb or a calf or a bull or whatever it was without blemish and without spot. It was perfect. Upon inspection and upon completion of that inspection, he would announce, it is finished. It is complete. And then moving into the artist studio, the artists that will perhaps bring together a mosaic. We were watching that program early this morning, the Highgrove Garden. I don't know if you ever watch it. I think it's Highgrove, is it? Beach Grove. Beach Grove. Highgrove is where Monty is, isn't it? Where Monty in Gardener's World, that's where he resides. But this is Beach Grove up in Scotland. And they went into an artist's garden. Well, this wonderful ability of taking glass, of taking potsherds that are shattered and broken, of taking little bits of whatever it was and making something that fitted in with the garden. And one of them was a mosaic, and when you look at the mosaic, you put one piece in, it almost looks like an ant's nest when it's first coming together. You can't see where the artist is trying to go with it. And the mosaic is brought together, or maybe the sculpture is brought together, or maybe the painting is brought together, or maybe the poem is brought together. And at its completion, the artist will announce, it's finished. This is common language that they would have used. In the marketplace, the moneylender, when receiving that final payment of an outstanding debt, would give to the one that has been in debt, writing on a piece of whatever thing they used to write on. I can't say paper because it wouldn't have been paper, but whatever they used to write on, would write on there, it is finished. I can't chase you for this anymore. He wouldn't write that on there, but it is finished. The debt has been paid. Now, in those circumstances that were common usage of terms in those areas that were so used to the lives that the people would have lived in, they would have heard it day in and day out. So what of Jesus, the servant, the slave, who completed the task given him? He is able to say on the cross, it is finished. In the Psalms, it boasts of his willingness to serve. I delight to do your will, O God. And so we find with Christ the absolute delight. We talked just briefly this morning of the Father's delight with the Son, twice affirming publicly that he was delighted with him. And yet we find with the Son that he's delighted in the Father, delighted to do what God wanted him to do. And so on the cross he was able to say, in regards of service, it is finished. What a marvelous thought to it. It is accomplished. It's been brought to an end. It's not a case that I can't do anymore. There's nothing else to do. What a marvel. It's finished. And so we come then to the Christ in the temple upon inspection. We find that, Pilate inspected him 3 times and announced, I find no fault in this man. Even sending him to cruel Herod, that loved to have had a little bone to pick with him, loved to have mocked him. He even beat him, but he couldn't find a fault in him. And so on the cross, Peter says, doesn't he? He was a lamb without blemish and without spot. He is able to announce, it is complete. It is finished. He who knew no sin, absolutely unmarked, more than innocent, able to overcome sin. What type of man is this that can do these things? What type of man is this that is able to look at a woman and see the beauty of the woman without undressing her? This is the type of man that Christ is. He could be put in the most difficult of circumstances and yet be there completely untouched by sin. He was tempted in all points, like as we are, yet without sin. What a marvel this is, isn't it? That he's able to look at you, male or female, look at you, and see you as you are, and yearn nothing but good towards you. What a marvelous thing. So there in the temple, they couldn't find a fault in him at all. It is complete. What of the artist with mosaic and with paintings and with poems? I've said to you so end of times. I read some poem and I've got a clue what they're on about. If it doesn't rhyme, I can't work it out. And yet we find with the Old Testament the types and the shadows. And you read them in isolated positions, isolated chapters, and you think, well, what's this referring to? And the mysteries of the prophets and the sages of the Old Testament. You bring together their words and you struggle to see some sort of understanding for it all. But then on the cross, we find just 2 verses before verse 30, verse 28 in John's Gospel, it says about the scriptures being accomplished. It's exactly the same word. The scripture being finished. He was able to say on the cross, Suddenly the Old Testament makes sense on the cross. It makes sense for the New Testament reader. All the types and shadows, all those different ones that show glimpses of Christ, suddenly on the Christ it said, I see it. It's finished. We come into the marketplace and we're there in debt and we can't pay it. And on the cross he is able to say, it is paid. That's what that word means. Romans 13 talks about it, paying tribute. It's exactly the same word. It is finished. You can't hang me for that anymore. Guilt or whatever, the law of God, whatever, it cannot hang you any longer. Why? Because the price has been paid. What a marvelous it is. It is finished. Not I am finished. Thankfully, not you are finished. It's a marvelous thing that as he's saying these words, we find the power of the cross. It's absolute completeness in every direction. There is no Achilles heel in the cross. There is no chink in the armor. There is no weak link on the cross. Everything is completed to perfection. It is finished. That's that loud cry that he gave. And that's what it means. It's complete. It's accomplished. There's no need for anything else. The cross has done it all. Now the amazing thing is that we can move on from the cross, can't we? To the resurrection, to the ascension, to the glorification of Christ, to the outpouring of the Spirit. Ever ongoing. Ever ongoing. This is what I mean. You just can't say, well, that's it. I've heard preachers say forgiveness is all, the cross is all about forgiveness. I've heard preachers say that. I've heard preachers say that the cross is everything and then it all ends. But they miss the resurrection. Then they miss the ascension. Then they miss the glorification of Christ. Then they miss the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. Then they miss that dear, dear fellowship that God wants to give to every single believer amongst us. Doesn't matter who we are, what we are, where we are, why we are. Maybe we'll put that one in. The cross just opens up things for us, just like forgiveness does. That just allows our soul, like Andrew talks about that valiant for truth. What was the place where Valiant for Truth went? What was it, the place where they all opened up there? Beulah, is it? I thought it was that house that he went to. What was that?
Interpreter's house.
The interpreter's house. And it all opens up. So it's finished. The power of the cross is found in that statement. It's finished, it's complete. And so we come to this prayer now. Verse 34. I forgot my glasses as well. No, it's not verse 34, is it? Verse 46. And when Jesus had cried out with a loud voice, he said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. He had good hearing, the Lord, didn't he? Good hearing. When the disciples are, having a crack at each other behind his back, and he talks and they say, well, why do you think it's more important to be served rather than served? He had tremendous hearing. He could pick up things. And I wonder if at this point he heard the tear in the veil of the temple. I wonder if he did. Because Luke says that it tore at that point. That's when it tore. The temple veil was opened up, and all could see that the furniture of the temple was in the shape of a cross. Look at it. As the veil opened up, it allowed each and every one of us to go into the presence of Almighty God. And not a second before could the Christ of God pray that prayer. Father, into your hands I commend or commit my spirit. Just shortly before, there had been a breach, hadn't it? My God, we never heard of him talking to his Father like that. It indicates the breach the severance of relationship there. As Christ took your sin and my sin, the world's sin upon himself. The severance there. My God, but look now. The relationship restored. Father, into your hand I commit my spirit. Hear the rest in that voice. Hear the peace of it. Hear it on the cross. That rest. When he says it's finished, he's not talking about his suffering is over and done with and he just broke like a glad that's over with. He's not talking like that. He's not thinking like that. It's not about that at all. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Luke says, and he breathed his last. John brings tremendous dignity into it. He says, Jesus bowing his head. So all that time, his head had been erect. His head had been erect. The pain had not defeated him. I've visited hospitals and I've twice seen pain written on the face. Only twice in all the years, in the 11 years and the visits that have gone on before that, just twice I've seen pain on the face. And it's like, you could see the cringe, you see the face bowing forward. You see the cringing, the anguish of the physical pain. But here it suggests that Christ's head was erect. And there on the cross, he breathes his last. He bowed his head and yielded up his spirit. Death did not take him. Even in death, he's the Lord of life. And he invites death, not death rushing to take him. He invites death. Hear him in John 10. I've got power to lay my life down. I've got power to take it back again. No man takes my life from me. I lay it down. And so we find this incredible, dignified moment that we see here, the price of the cross. It took more than our sins being laid upon him. He had to die for you and for me. The wages of sin is death. And he died. Oh, glorious death. It says, Wesley boasting of the Methodists that were in his day, one thing they could say of the Methodists, they die well, was his glory in point. They die well. We've come across situations like that, haven't we? But here, Paul says he was obedient to death, even the death of the cross. What a glorious Saviour we've got. What a glorious Saviour we've got. It's a marvellous thought. It's wonderful to have that princely Saviour. In rugby terms, it's wonderful to have that outside half that can glide past you, not with the moving and the sidestep, but just with the use of his eyes. Barry John's secret. You rarely saw Barry John sidestep. You see Phil Bennett sidestep. It looked almost robotic the way Phil Bennett used to do it. Barry John rarely sidestep. He just swerved. His eyes, you'd watch his eyes and his eyes would deceive you. Lovely to have that prince. But every world-class team has to have a dog. Every world-class team has to have someone in that team that will put their life on the line. That will say, come hither or come hell, whatever it is. I'm going there, I'm going in. I'm going into places where I'll be vulnerable, where I can be hurt, where I can be in a position where I'm going to be damaged. The Christ of God, the Prince of Glory. Oh, he came so determined for us, each and every one of us, to die in our place. Time has gone. Marvellous Saviour that we've got, his prayers that we have before.